I am currently at the hospital. Had to get this guy checked for any infections, but 5 days in, it's pretty clean and healing quickly. So, yeah, it's good news. But I wanted to jump on and do a quick video about how things are going because tomorrow we've got the June solstice, and I know every year we talk about portal dates like the solstice and Lionsgate, equinoxes, but tomorrow feels kind of different in the sense that the Earth timelines are solidifying, and it's clearer to see the contrast because what's happening on the global stage, what's happening with politics and with war and conflicts, it's easier to see what areas are really expressing dense, divisive, conflict, separation-based consciousness, and all the fear and all the clashing belief systems, like who's more right, who's wrong. So you might be wondering why there's so much chaos when we're meant to be evolving into higher frequencies, higher consciousness. It's because all this light, all this awareness is shaking all that type of domineering energy, that warring energy that has existed on the planet for a long time. And now it's becoming more obvious. The reason why that's important to get out on the table and to air out is because we can't bring that into the next frequency that we're going into. So the war that we see externally is really a mirror for the wars that we have internally, the judgments we have internally, the criticisms, and those like ethics and morals that we either hold against people or hold against ourselves. There are going to be groups of people that are really resonating with those events that create a lot of divisiveness, and that serves a purpose because it shows them an aspect of humanity that is alive and sensitive within them. This is not to do with like a lack of compassion or a lack of empathy. This really has to do with choosing sides and whether someone is dogmatic about their point of view being the right point of view. And this is how we see inflated egos playing out, this sense of self-righteousness. And my belief or my perspective or my view is the right one. So this idea of superiority is a big part of like duality and this contrast learning that we experience in the 3D. And to transcend that, we need to walk a path of neutrality. And neutrality can be a triggering word because people think it's complacent. People think that it's spiritual bypassing. There are so many different events and situations happening out in the world, and at different levels of awareness we can understand the depth and the manipulation and the maliciousness of them rather than just what's being played out in the news, because that's what the news outlets want you to see. They want you to feel outraged, they want you to feel angry, they want you to emote, because that kind of survival mechanism, that triggered state of emotional volatility, it takes you away from your centeredness and your awareness and your own presence. That's why we can't heal from the head. That's why we can't heal from beliefs or ideals, because everyone actually holds a unique perspective and there is validation in all of it. This is why healing on the global stage, but also within ourselves, comes from the heart. Like, we have to move into compassion, because compassion is that higher frequency, it's that higher consciousness that seeks to unify the differences rather than saying, okay, this side is right and they get their way. As we come into the solstice, I think it's an interesting time to see this bifurcation, like I've been talking about, this splitting of timelines. And that's not to say that one's better than the other, it's just two different learning paths. They're splitting because the energetics of the consciousness of the planet are starting to diverge. Those that are choosing not to play the game of separation, division, conflict, and war within themselves first, there's a nuance in this because I think it's also important to acknowledge sovereignty and the idea of boundaries and of standing up, and that's part of the process of going from victim mentality into self-empowerment, claiming your personal power. But at some point we look for integration rather than more separation, rather than creating more boxes and boundaries and labels, rather than judging things, rather than categorizing things as better or worse. We start to bring all of it back into the heart, into a sense of wholeness, and hold space for it, because a lot of that malicious energy is really wounded energy, is really energy that's misunderstood, that's looking to exert power because it's overcompensating for something, and they feel like they've been cheated or they've been poorly done by. Well, at this point we need to ask, how does that take a toll on your own well-being, your own mental health? Getting involved and plugging yourself into those narratives and stories and that timeline, how is that affecting your field, your mental health, your emotional health? So yeah, compassion, but also understanding your limits and understanding self-care, and knowing that we're going through a big transition, and that energetically we're going to be more stimulated, more activated through the solar flares, through the geomagnetic storms, and our own fields are going through a lot. So be really intentional and conscious and mindful about who we're sharing our energy with, and also how much time we need to integrate and process these upgrades. Tomorrow feels like an important date to almost take a step back and I guess congratulate ourselves, those that have been on the spiritual path, to see the transformation and the growth that's happened over these years, how certain things in the past would have been triggering, would have been really addictive and really enticing to tap into and to get fired up about. Where we plug into, where we put our attention, where we put our focus, we grow that. So being really conscious about what we're trying to build, rather than stressing and catastrophizing over what's naturally crumbling, because its time is done, and these are obsolete systems that are on the way out. The important thing is, what are you building? What are you creating? What are you investing in for the new earth that you want to see? And we do that through ourselves first. Who's that version of you that you want to show up as? And then secondly, how can you tune into the projects and the communities and the mission that your soul signed up for? I was going to send some light and healing and intentions and prayers to those places around the world, and I feel like that's something that we can do, that people might underestimate. People might say, how's that going to help? But consciousness, frequency, intention, and the power of prayer, meditation, coming together in conscious groups to shift our awareness into other possibilities, rather than letting the external news drive the narratives and to tell us what's going wrong in the world, because we can see that news outlets are really good at that, and they will show us again and again things that are scary, things that are frightening, things that are frustrating, or that create outrage and divisiveness. But I think it's on us to step up and to come together in communities and I guess show ourselves how much power we have. And I think that's going to be the game changer moving into these 5D communities. Understanding that when we do this frequency work, consciousness work, we're really shifting the timelines, and that energy will follow where we send it, the path, the track, the rails that we send it along, through our imagination, through our intention, through our visualization. That paves the way for reality to to follow suit and to unfold into the material world. So that's it for today. I will see you guys next week. Big love. Bye.